Welcome to The Dentist Show. Let's jump right in.
Okay, well, welcome to another episode of The Dentist Show.
The best dentist show.
I think we're the only one called The Dentist. Oh wait, have you seen The Dentist?
The Dentist?
He's a TikTok dentist.
Dude, you're on TikTok a lot more than I thought you were.
I am not.
I mean, we are TikTok famous in Spokane, yet you know
I'm not on
all
TikTok.
of the TikTokers out there.
I'm not even on TikTok a lot. So what happens is I will listen to a podcast or some marketing, I guess. I'm very easily influenced. And then I go research the person.
Yeah.
Because like, what type of name is the dentist? That's so stupid. I go research him. He's an orthodontist in Texas. He was like the first like TikTok famous dentist.
What's his last name?
I have zero idea.
Well, does it start with a B?
I assume his first name Ben.
Ah, the dentist.
But I have no idea.
I have a classmate that I went to school with. He is the singing dentist.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, I don't know that guy. The dentist has like crazy eyebrows. I think that's why he became popular, because his eyebrows can do like crazy though.
Oh, like he can move his eyebrows.
Yeah, he can. Well, yeah, and like they're like really. I wonder if he shaves them. Funny.
Yeah, maybe.
Have you seen that other? He was probably the original guy, the pretty funny guy that would sing, and his eyebrows were like all funky. No, you know, remember that guy? He's like
on TikTok.
I would say he's like Middle Eastern guy on something. I don't know if it's TikTok, because it's been a few years. Probably like 6 years. Oh, here we go again. We're live.
Did TikTok even exist 6 years ago?
No, that's why it wasn't TikTok. It was some other format. It was probably Facebook. People know what I'm talking about. He's actually a decent singer. And he looks like he's like Middle Eastern maybe. And he has the craziest eyebrows. So he can like bounce it when he sings and stuff. I don't know.
Hey, any of our listeners that know who Chase is talking about, just give us a thumbs up and we'll count the thumbs up.
You guys can't put his name down there. I think he's in Ohio, actually.
Yeah, you just think everything's in Ohio because that's where you went to school.
I don't know what didn't happen in Ohio is we didn't beat Michigan this year.
Yeah.
So it was actually ugly. Very, very, very ugly.
Yeah.
So, I'm still here.
I was just say I almost
don't care.
Yeah.
You have like, do you know what even football looks like?
Yeah, I know what a football looks like.
Do you know the rules?
I know what a football looks like, and I would never call that instrument that looks like an egg a football, like some patients or some team members do and some dentists do.
You call it egg?
Yeah, I call it an egg because it looks like an egg. I was taught it's called a football, and then I always make the comment with new team members like, hey, everyone wants to call this a football. Does it look like a football to you? And they look at me like, no. And I'm like, what does it look like? They're like, I don't know. I'm like, an egg, right? They're like, yeah. That was play-by-play.
Wow. So do you call it an egg or a football?
I call it the egg or the football that looks like an egg.
So you just make it very complicated.
Yeah,
Your
just
new assistant's like, I don't know what to do when he says egg that looks like a football or football looks like an egg.
But you all know what I'm talking about. There's no instrument that looks like a football.
It looks close enough to football. Do you know what the 8A is? 8A instrument?
8A?
Mm-hmm.
No.
So
maybe I do. I just don't.
When he first left dental school, that's what I used to call. That's what they called it in dental school, was the 8A, and it's the plastic. It's the flat thing.
Yeah, we just called that the plastic.
Yeah, we just call it plastic. So
or flat.
My first dental assistant, probably first couple, I used to I really tried to stay true to the name of the instrument.
Yeah.
Like we passed the 8A, and they stare at me like, what? And I mumble in my mask. So they're
nerd.
Probably like, an AA? You want a double A battery?
Yeah,
like,
double A?
You know,
that's what I call them in my house.
I'm like, the one for composite? I just trying like my best to not use plastic, or some systems will call it the flat. It's like, I do not want to call it plastic because composite's not a plastic. And that's not a plastic instrument. It's metal or gold tip. Anyway, sorry about that tangent. But,
okay. Well, what other instruments do you have beef with?
not the football shaped composite polishing.
It's actually an egg-shaped football.
What's that instrument called? We used to have a name for that too. Anyways, well, cool. Well, here we are.
Okay.
Good episode.
Well, how about that?
We're back. So this episode, we want to talk about numbers. Know your numbers.
Yeah, you got to know them. Otherwise, guess what? You don't know
You don't know 'em, and you might
Yeah.
not make very much money from all the hard work you do.
Yeah.
So I want to break down. There's we didn't even write them down. There's typically about 7 numbers we keep a close eye on, and especially in the offices, since we have multiple offices, we put them side by side so we know if anything is getting out of whack.
Yeah.
And
How things are trending against each other.
Yeah, and if something's out of whack, then we can go and fix it or address it, or maybe understand the story behind it.
Yeah.
So what's the first number I look at is always the top line revenue. And top line revenue means a lot, because if an office is doing $5 million a year, that rent is typically less than 5%. The utilities drop down to like practically zero. But if the office is only doing 1.2 million, now your rent's like 7-8%. Your utility is now a percent, and so it really sways those fixed costs that you can't change it, because it's a fixed cost. So it's going to be the same amount, the same dollar amount every year, every month,
regardless of what your production
regardless of the production. The percent might change. So if you're doing 100,000 one month, that percent might be one number, and the next month you do 200. The percent changes, but the number stays the same. So that's the difference between a fixed expense versus a variable expense. And so when you have bigger offices, your fixed expense kind of go down to zero, but then you have some variable costs that actually start growing on you.
Right.
So,
They go up with the cost of doing business.
yeah. Not only does the cost go up, but the rate goes up. Like you would think a team member, I always thought a large office would have a smaller percent of salary, or a smaller number for salary for the team. And it's never been the case. It always grows faster. Like, say if I have a small team and I'm doing $1 million, say I'm doing $1 million a year, and I got a small team, my team salary is typically like 20 to 22%.
Yeah.
Then you take the office to 5 million or 4 million plus, without fail, that team salary is now 30%. Explain it to me. Like, how's
why?
that any sense?
Why is that? I
have
have a
my
theory.
thoughts. But I want to hear Ryan's thoughts, because I know you probably stay up and think about this all night.
You just want to hear my theories so that you can bully me.
I'm going to crush you. I'm going to crush them until you cry like a little stepchild.
Oh, jeez.
But let's hear your thoughts.
Hey, we can't hate on the stepchilds. Children's. Children.
Yeah, so I was at a new office, and she used the term, they felt like they were the redheaded step, and she stopped. And I was like, wait, is that a common term among like everybody?
Yeah, I thought it was just a me thing.
I thought it was just a few people. Like my family used it, and like, oh no, we use it all the time. We're the redheaded stepchild. And I'm like, that's so funny.
What does that mean? Like, how does that make the redheads feel?
I don't know. They're what they're talked about.
You know, I like to be talked about.
But if you're not a redheaded stepchild, you just redhead, then you're amazing.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. If you're a stepchild, you're cool too. But so what's your theory about...
we're going to get canceled.
And why do they always get beat?
Yeah.
I'm going to beat you like a redheaded stepchild is the full term. I don't get it. I don't know where that even came from.
Let's just make a disclaimer. We have no problems with redheads, stepchildren, and we do have a problem with beating children.
We don't do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's your thoughts? What's
my thought?
Why does the team salary grow as as a percent when the number gets higher? So 1 million, like when Spokane, for example, was first started, their team revenue, their team cost was always the smallest one of all my other offices. And it was small as like 20 or less percent, might even 18%.
Yeah, I remember we were pretty low there for a while.
And now I think it's 32%.
Yeah.
Why is that? What's your theory?
Want my theory? My theory is, and I can't wait to hear what you say back to me. I'm a little scared now.
Yeah, you should be. You want to squat. Like
I'm so nervous. My theory is that our return on investment, if you will, so the productivity of each individual team member goes down as we increase more team members.
Well, yeah. But why?
Why?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you just wanted to know the what.
Oh,
the why.
Yeah, of course that's why. Or
See?
why?
Why? The why?
Why the why? Why does that why happen?
I also have a theory on this.
Okay, yeah,
Can't wait.
That's what I want to know
Yeah.
about.
I think that the power of an owner doctor is diluted in the sense that the power of their effect on the team is diluted as your team gets bigger and you add other providers to the team. And therefore, your measurable effect or effect, I think it'd be, on our team. Do you know which one it is?
No, never understood that.
So
don't go into it. Okay.
Yeah, let's not dial back in there. So I think the measurable effect that we have on each individual team member goes down with every team member that we add.
Okay. Why?
Just kidding. Why? I know. Well, because
here we go.
Well, actually, most leaders, their capacity to lead diminishes significantly when you start to add over 7 team members per leader.
Okay.
So as a doctor, as a dentist, as an owner, as a business owner, or whatever it might be, our ability to lead as we add more and more and more team members starts to get less effective.
Yeah, it does. I think there's nothing wrong with that at all. And I think when it's a small team, my theory to add to it is the team, like if there's a front desk, typically an office is small, say under $700,000 a year, they have one front office team member and they have one assistant and one hygienist. So the front office team member has to handle everything. And
so they do everything.
They just do everything. And they know if they don't show up for work, if they don't do something, no one else is going to do it. And so they're super productive because they know they have to do it.
So a high level of accountability.
Yeah. They just, it's like having one coach said it's like having a rowboat with 4 people rowing. Like you kind of say with the leaders on the top, and you can talk to all 4 of them, and you can all row the same way.
Yeah.
When you become a big boat or a cruise ship, suddenly you get that one guy that's on top of in front of the boat is not talking to all the team members, like you're saying. So it's a kind of the play of those 2 roles, I think.
Yeah. Maybe you get a little, what's that game? Phone or, when you like tell someone a secret in their ear and they tell it to the next person, the next person. It changes, gets a little diluted or.
Yeah. So I think that's why at the first, time your front office team member is like, hey, we need to hire somebody else. It's like, yeah, you do. You're drowning.
Yeah.
And then those 2 people are usually amazing. They both do so well because it's, once again, small team. I don't want to let my other team member down. And then you get to 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 front office team members, and it's like, well, I thought she did that, or I thought she did that.
Yeah.
And you think you think they'd be more productive. And sometimes, and we do, some of them are freaking amazing. And then sometimes we lose that stewardship over what they're doing because so many people can do it. Like if you don't do it, I know somebody else will do it for me.
Yeah.
So then you get this like kind of a bigger team that's less productive than they were when they're small.
Maybe a little more complacent in ways.
Yeah, some like really step up. So it just depends. And I think you get away from like the core, the founder, the leader that's trying to move one way. Like you're saying, you're a little farther away from that example or the force moving things forward, and you still get a little lost.
Well, I like to kind of explain that as like the personality of the office, right? The personality of a small office generally is the strongest personality in the office, right? Which is generally the owner, the founder, the owner doc. So he or she is the personality of the office. Everything's built around that personality. And as you dilute that personality with more and more personalities, it gets harder to control and guide.
Yeah.
That.
It's not like you're controlling for bad or good, but just like you have a vision and you want to go that way. And if you have 30 people on your boat and you're trying to go that way, people are going to be rowing the wrong way. They're going to be rowing the opposite way.
Yeah. Not rowing as strong in one direction.
And some will be rowing like crazy as hard as they can, and no one else is, and they get burnt out and they give up. And so you have all these different things. So anyway, we really went down that one, and I hope you got some out of it. But back to the numbers. I
just like to point out you didn't beat me up.
I didn't
Emotionally or
I
verbally.
didn't squash you like a cockroach. You are. So that is one number we look at, and that's typically a variable expense. But so if you're a smaller office, if you're doing 1.2, 1.5 million, you try to keep that under 25%.
Yep.
Also, the other thing I didn't mention, when you're a bigger office, you typically have people with more experience or expertise, and so you tend to have to pay them a little bit more money than someone that you can kind of have more oversee of. Anyway, so if you're doing an office is doing 4 or 5 plus million, we try to keep around 30%, and as of late it's been up around 32 up to 34%.
Do you think like benefits packages and stuff like that, as you get bigger, you start talking those types of things?
Yeah, most offices, if you look at their their match programs, or like we have a 401k match program, and we have insurance in the office.
Yeah.
Each of those tend to be about 0.5%.
Okay.
So those together only up about 1%. So it's not as much as a big salary increase or whatever, but some good ranges. So that one's a really variable cost. It's a variable in many ways, but it can be as low as like 15%, and it can go up to like the last 5 or 6 offices I've looked at. They're getting close to that 40%, which is super scary.
Yeah.
So anyways, but the ideal is if you're doing like probably 3.5 to 4 million plus, you're going to be around 30, maybe 28 to 30%. If you're under 2 million, you try to probably keep that under 25%. I would say. So that's one number. 2 numbers, I guess: top line revenue, and then your team expensed.
Yeah. And there's some other people on our team that also get paid that we don't calculate into that number, though. Who are those people?
Oh, no idea what you're talking about.
Our dentists.
Oh, yeah. Well, who cares about dentists?
Our associate dentists and ourselves.
Yeah, dentist cost for sure is also a variable expense, and it kind of depends how you're set up. If you're an individual owner, like you are the dentist owner operators, what they're kind of known as. If you're the business owner and you're the main producer, you're owner operator. If you look at an average dental office that has the dentist, a sole dentist with 3 or 4 team members, the top line revenue is about $1 million, probably a little less, $800,000, I think still. Their overall overhead is typically about 72%. So they pay themselves 28% what's left over.
Yeah.
So they don't typically pay themselves much that's
putting no money back into the office as far as like reinvestment, right?
Yeah, typically. So so that's where you get that 30% number. I think that's where associates started getting that 30% number, is because it's kind of what owners used to pay themselves, or what was left over, more or less. But so as an office grows, or if you have associates, what typically happens is you would think associates, because most of our associates are 30-ish based % of their revenue.
Yeah.
And so you think it'd be 30% of the total top line number is what we pay doctors, but it's actually less. And that's because we have hygienists that are producers in our offices. And so healthy offices typically they're right around 22% on average of the total revenue goes to the doctors. So if you're running your own office and you have one associate, you and that doctor can be paid about 20 to 20% of that total revenue number. And then that pays you as a dentist. That's what your kind of worth is. If you replace yourself, that's what it would cost.
Yeah. And that's you as a dental provider, not as an owner.
Yeah. That's just straight up, you're doing dentistry. And then the owner we'll talk about here at the end what the total hopefully take home would be on the average office. So dentist. So it's kind of weird to think about more than half of your income. If you're not the dentist in the location, more than half of your income goes to people.
Yeah.
So 50 to 55% tends to be the average, is just going to people. So if you make $1, 50 to 55 cents of that dollar goes back to just your team. Yeah. Nothing else. So quite high.
Yeah. I mean, as an industry, we're people heavy.
Yeah, we probably have the caveats are typically oral surgeons, endodontists. Their team is usually smaller based on their fees, so they're typically around 15%.
Yeah.
So the next, what's the next number you want to know about?
Talk to me about our supplies.
Supplies. We bought an office recently. that their dental supply percent was 8.5%.
That's scary.
That's high. High. And they do not have. So the first question I always look when I see a supply budget that high is if they have CEREC. Because if they have CEREC, a lot of times it gets thrown in the dental supply category
Instead of lab, where
instead of lab, because it's you usually have one supplier like Shine or Patterson that they're buying a supply from, and your bookkeeper or accountant are just throwing it under supplies. This office did not, so this is straight up dental supply budget was 8.5%, super high. What we just talked about is what would be the ideal for an office doing about $2 million a year? What do you think?
we like the number of about 4%.
Yeah, 4%. Pre-COVID, we were always under 4%.
Yeah.
Post-COVID, we actually got up to the Washington offices got up to about 5.5%.
I was gonna say we were knocking on the door of like almost 6% a couple of months there.
Yeah, and then for a couple of years. So then 2023, you were down to 5.1% on average in the Washington offices. This year, the last trill, I think you're at 4.5%. So doing much better. Arizona's just a little better. We are always around 4%. Well, in 2021, we were up to 5%.
Yeah.
And then ever since we've been close to 4, now we're at 3.8. So we've really come down. Good number. If you like to use Patterson, Shine, use the best materials, you probably want to be under 6% if you're not trying to negotiate. We are big in 3M products, which they give us a great rate. That's where we are able to save some money, and we have some suppliers to help us out. That's how we get to 4%, as we don't use any knockoff products typically. But cool. So yeah, I think any healthy range is from like 3.5%. If try to stay under 5%, it doesn't make any sense to give your supplier an extra percent just because you like the guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
you can negotiate or something to get those numbers to where you're at that 5%.
Yeah. It's all
below 5%. We definitely don't want to be.
Yeah. If you can, stay under 5. If you really like your sales rep and you takes you golfing, I guess you can get up to 6, but
only for free golfing.
Yeah. I would try to stay. There's no reason now. All the prices. So anyone that's said like, well, COVID happened, all the prices have come back to where they were pre-COVID, more or less. And some things came down lower, and some prices haven't quite got where they were, but they're still, all the prices are back to normal, like mask, gloves, composite, bond, everything's back to where they were. So don't stress about it. Put some pressure on your suppliers, and then bring it up like, well, what's the DSO, like especially Shine, like what your DSO is paying?
Yeah.
Like, why are they getting a better deal than I do? Because the amount of work that Shine does for that one DSO, like the DSO office has 100 offices, the same work goes into the office doing at each individual office.
Yeah.
So they shouldn't be getting that big of a break.
Yeah. So what's the benefit of Shine working with a DSO versus a smaller office? I think is
just economy,
just
scale.
stickiness, right?
Yeah, it just looks good. They can go to the main thing they can do, like Shine or Patterson, Burkhart, they can go to their suppliers like 3M and say, hey, we have 200 offices. They're all in 3M, and then 3M can give them a break. Then they can pass on to the DSOs or us. I mean, that's what we do too. Yeah. Once we get our supplier, we got 6, 7, 8 offices. They can go to 3M or GC and say, hey, you automatically get all 8 offices if you switch, and they come down for us, even though we don't have the same supplier. But the one that Arizona is better than Washington. Our numbers are 4% because we use the Spokane offices in that negotiating process, even though you guys don't use the same supplier. So, anyways, so that's dental supplies. What's next?
I feel like you're trying to bully me into switching suppliers.
You know it's
right
coming.
Here.
You know it's coming. I'm gonna talk to a couple guys up here.
I know.
Anyways, what's the next number?
Next number. So we've talked about top line revenue. We've talked about overhead for people. We've talked about supplies. What about marketing? Where should we be on marketing?
Marketing. Do you think?
Because there's some offices that don't market at all.
Yeah, like the couple, and we have a couple out don't market. So, what do you think it's a variable cost or fixed cost?
I think marketing is variable cost.
Very variable. Okay. So, and then what do you think if say you're one episode we had a while back was about growth and your goals. So say if you're trying to grow by 20%, are they going to have a higher marketing budget or a lower marketing budget?
Definitely higher than
Yeah.
an office that's not trying to grow as much.
Yeah. And also say if you're trying to do a specialty procedure and you do not have a huge social media influence, and so you're just getting off the ground, so you're trying to do all in fours, veneers, whatever the case, implant practices, do you think they're going to have a higher marketing budget or lower than the bread and butter?
More.
Yeah,
Because
more.
you're trying to market a specialty service, so you're being more targeted with your marketing and therefore more expensive.
Yeah, definitely. And the type of marketing you do costs more money.
Yeah.
And you got to spend more because you're with general dentist offices, there's more stickiness here. You come here once and typically they keep coming to the same location for their same issues.
Right.
Whereas if you're going to an endodontist or veneer expert or implant, it's usually a one and done. So
you go in for that service you're seeking and then you're out.
Yeah, so you got to drive those new patients constantly to the office. Whereas the goal for my office is as we grow, we want it to be a snowball effect. So we do not have to spend marketing dollars as much as this. It's a machine that the referrals just keep coming in, replace the ones that we're losing to the attrition. So with that, so I think anywhere from I think you always need to spend a little bit on marketing because if you're not marketing any specialty procedures. So I would say a healthy range is actually just 1% to 12%, depending on where you're going. So it's a huge range.
Yeah, it's a big range.
Yeah. And I think a healthy one for a general dentist office that's trying to grow is 7 to 8% would be I'd be okay with that. And knowing that your profitability is probably going to be really low because you're taking, if your goal is 20% profitability, you're taking like 6 to 7% of that and throwing at marketing.
Right.
To hit your goal.
20% minus 6% is 14.
Yeah.
Big difference.
Yeah. And if your payroll is a little higher, there's 2 more percent. If your dental supply is 1% more, there's another budget issue. So anyways, the huge range on the marketing based on where your goals are, what you're marketing. And anyway, so that's a bigger range. And I think that's actually any business is pretty healthy in that spot of 1 to 10%.
Yeah. You talked in pretty good detail about it. It's like the what you're trying to do and the why you're doing it dictates why that range can be so big.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
You know, if it's just, you're just wanting to stay where you're at and not disappear, 1%.
Yeah.
If you're wanting to grow in a big way or a specific way, it might be 12%.
Yeah. That's a big number. We don't have a great number for you on that one, but it's a good range.
Yeah.
What else you got?
Okay, what's our next number to focus on?
You're such a numbers guy.
Yeah, I'm a big numbers guy. You can tell. I focus on numbers all the time. Truth be told, Chase is our numbers guy. He's the data guy.
I'm the nerd.
He's
the group.
He's the nerd of the group.
I
I'm
need to
just
get some glasses.
I'm just the homeboy, the cool guy.
You keep telling yourself that.
Okay, so the next number that I would like to focus on, let's see, what's our well, you already said it is like our bottom number, right? Like our what's
You're already jumping there.
Yeah.
You're already
Where
jumping
do you want to go to next? Where would you like to go?
Let's see. There's 2 more numbers people tracked, and that's their lab costs.
Oh, I thought we talked lab because I said lab earlier.
We brought it up,
but we didn't close it out. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's do lab. That's a great
labs,
one.
It's once again a pretty variable. So you have your veneer. If you only do veneers, you're typically, unless you're using crappy veneers labs, typically going to be a little higher percent of your top line revenue. But you hope your top line revenue is huge because you're just doing veneers all day.
Right.
But they seem to be around 10% if you're using 10 to 12% if they're using high end labs.
Okay.
And some might fight me on that and say there's closer to 18%. I think most are still between 10 and 12%.
Yeah.
So, and if they're not, they're probably not charging enough for their veneers. But
right, with how much they're paying for their lab fees, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what do we want in our larger general practices that we're trying to do as much out of the same door as possible?
Yeah. So we look at under 7% as the goal, and we typically pay. I don't know what's the main lab you use here. What do you pay for a crown
For a crown, we pay, I think it's $99
Okay.
for
So
a.
it's standard. You guys don't get many special pricing.
Well, that's for a translucent zirconia or a layered zirconia.
Okay.
I think that's right about where we're at, and I think we're 88,
Yeah.
89
Okay.
for our full zirconia. Yeah.
So most that, and I think if you're not getting about $89, you probably can call your lab and ask for it, and I think they'll give it to you.
Yeah.
I think if you're getting 79 and you're not making a lot of adjustments, I think you're killing it.
Yeah.
And you're not shipping it to China. If you're shipping to China, you're probably looking at $59, but then you're having a lot of adjustments or unpredictable delivery times of your cases. None of our offices use China, and most of our offices use local labs, at least on the West Coast or so,
within the state or we try to.
So they're $89 is healthy. And so if you're in that ballpark and you're mostly bread and butter with some implants, I think like we try to keep it around 7%.
Yeah.
And that's also a category we don't have much influence on.
Right.
Because the patient needs it. And they need a crown. We try to negotiate a little bit. And we also don't want to use crappy labs.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And I mean, if you're using the lab of your dreams and you're spending $300 on a crown, that's way different than $99 a crown, right?
Yeah, 99 or 89. You guys, you really shouldn't be paying much. You never pay more than 99 for a monolithic zirconia or Emax. Doesn't matter how good your lab is; they're all
cut out of the same material.
It's all milling them out anymore. So that's a good healthy range. We like to be around 7% or less for all our offices because they're all pretty much similar in their mix, procedural mix.
Yeah. I have a question on that. Are your implants a lab device?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. We label all lab implant parts as a lab cost.
Yeah. So we kind of touch base on that a little bit is like your crowns, if you're doing CEREC, your CEREC fees and your CEREC blocks, all of that are lab, not dental supplies. Same with your implants. Your implants are lab, not dental supplies.
Yeah. And in the offices, which is kind of funny, we have one office and he pretty much does, I shouldn't say only, but 90% of cases are CEREC blocks.
Yeah.
And what's funny is there's labs is also 7%.
What? In the wild?
Yeah. So it kind of works out where it's all like 6 to 7% is a pretty healthy CEREC or non-CEREC office. So anyways, cool. Lab. And then rent is one that people also look at. Rent has a little bit more. You think it's rent a fixed or variable cost?
Fixed.
Yeah, fixed cost. So you typically look at 5 to 7%. If you own the property, you own the real estate, you tend to charge yourself a little bit higher rent. So it might be 7 to 8%. And if you don't, then that you try to get down to like 5% would be the ideal range. And that's based on the office top line revenues.
Yeah. And we talked about that earlier. It's like that's an awesome area when you start to produce enough to where those numbers start to disappear.
Yeah.
Like disappear in a percentage way.
Yeah, that's awesome because then you have more of a percent to pay your team because that's going to creep up as that office production goes up higher. Or if you want to market, you can steal money from that rent budget and put on the marketing budget.
Yeah.
So those are I think we hit them all. We might have missed one that's top, but those are like top ones people keep an eye on.
Yeah.
Closely. And
those are kind of some key indicators there. Yeah.
You have some like your office supplies, but you keep that under 0.5% and it's not fun to watch. And you have other things like when we first left school, we had no subscriptions and now each office pays almost $2,000 a month in subscriptions and like dental intel in your.
They turned us into the gym model.
Yeah, man. It's just insane. We have like Pandora for business. We just adds up. So anyway, so that's also a category, but we don't really watch it because it kind of is what it is. You just pick your devil and get in and go with it. So bottom line. So I think if you can get 20%. So if you're an owner operator, you're the dentist or you're the main producer of your business, whatever it is, if you can pay yourself as a normal dentist and then have 20% plus left over, you're doing great. You're killing it. So that's where we shoot for as regular businesses or regular dental offices with associates and most of our offices, we shoot for 20% or more in bottom line.
And 1% here, 2% there, it adds up. It makes a big difference on that low number.
Yeah, it's amazing when you look at like one of the offices that does bigger numbers in our group, how they typically only get like 12 to 13%
Yeah.
bottom line profit, which doesn't mean that goes in our pocket. That means that goes to pay for our loans or the amortization or depreciation expense. So it's pretty much a wash, and which is frustrating because you have a $3 or $4 million office and there's no profit.
Yeah, all that liability, all that dentistry, all that work.
Yeah, and it's what's crazy about this particular office. There wasn't anything that was super high. It's just every category was 1% to 2% too high. Yeah. And so if you take up 10 categories and they're all 1% high, now it's like 10% profit, which is like, it's $300,000 versus $600,000 a year in profitability to help pay a loan and all that stuff and make their risk worth it. So anyway, so keep an eye on those small changes. Compare your numbers to ours. Do some research of how you might be able to fix some of those or get them a little lower. Yeah. And sometimes the biggest thing you can do is just increase your top line revenue, and then everything lines out to okay.
Yeah, if you're 1% up on everything, increase your top line number by
10%.
10%, boom.
Yeah, you make up the cost there. So I think that's what a lot of people that have a hard time with KPIs would say too, is like, well, if you're not making enough money, produce more. Yeah. And I think if you could produce more and watch those numbers, then now you're getting that 25% profitability, which is now you have a business that is so well functioning. You can bring on some really good team members, and you have actually something to sell if you ever want to sell that practice, because it's such a or any business.
Yeah, a well-running machine at that point.
Yeah, you're talking about some very well ran, and what I found too of the business owners I know, that 20% number is a very common number that people shoot for. And we're talking about cash basis. Like we're not talking about cost of goods sold. We're like all in a dent where our business, as most healthcare providers, try to get that 20% in profitability after you pay yourself as a provider and everybody else. And then you get 20% take home to pay for loans and other ventures. So anyways, that's know your numbers.
Know your numbers.
You should know them. It's not that difficult, and it is quite boring.
Yeah. Even though Chase likes to make fun of me, they're not that hard to know.
No, somebody's got to know them, because Ryan won't.
I know them. I just don't
today.
Track them like you do.
You know them today. Just kidding. You know them. But well, good. Look at this. That was know your numbers. Now it's going to be New Year's. Yeah. I think this is like New Year's Eve.
Eve. We call that New Year's Adam.
New Year's.
So like, Christmas Eve, the day before Christmas Eve is Christmas Adam.
Is this like a Bushman thing?
I mean, I think it's more of a merchant thing, which is my wife's maiden name.
Okay. Right. Okay. We'll have a very happy New Year's Adam.
Yeah. And don't drink and drive. Get home safe.
Have a great week. I hope you're all setting your goals, having some awesome challenges you're going to set in front of you. And
find someone to kiss. Make sure they want to kiss you back.
Yeah.
Don't kiss someone that doesn't want to kiss you back.
Don't kiss your employees.
Definitely do not kiss your employees.
And then join us for next time.
Okay.
We'll be back.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to The Dentist Show.
Thanks for listening to The Dentist Show. We hope that this episode helped you make smiles about more than teeth. To get more resources to grow as a dentist and to learn more about Chase and Ryan, go to thedentistshow.com or just follow the link in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, share with another dentist in your life and help us grow the movement. And be sure to rate and review wherever you're listening.